speakers. We shall now go on to our next speaker, Dr. Ramesh Kekunia, who is a consultant and head of pediatric ophthalmology, strabismus and neuro-ophthalmology at Ramanama Children Eye Care Center at LVPI, Hyderabad. He would be dealing on hereditary optic neuropathies, when should I suspect, and what investigations should I order. On to you, Dr. Ramesh.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chitra, and also ARC and AOS team for conducting this excellent high-quality education program over this difficult pandemic year, which is getting difficult day by day. I'll be talking about when and what to investigate in cases of hereditary optic neuropathy. In this 6 minutes, I will share probably 6 pearls, which are in yellow font in my presentation. So it's in different slides. That's what I would tend to do. If you see the non-syndromic hereditary optic neuropathy, they are mainly 3 mitochondrial mutations of Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, dominant optic atrophy, and recessive type. And there is also X-linked. OPA1 to 7 genes, 6 and 7 are recessive, and the second one is X-linked. These are the non-syndromic. If you see the syndromic, this is also important. There is OPA1 plus syndrome. There is MELAS, mitochondrial encephalopathy with lactic acidosis and stroke-like syndrome. There is LHON dystonia MELAS and Leigh overlapping syndrome with the myoclonic epilepsy, because these are mainly mitochondrial. And many of us know Wolfram syndrome or Didmore syndrome with the typical presentation. These are the things we have to look at when you are dealing with hereditary optic neuropathy. This is a beautiful slide by Virender Sachdeva I borrowed. When you see a asymmetrical temporal pallor, there is bitemporal hemianopia, think about chiasmal. When there is diffuse pallor with the changes in the vessels, think about something vascular obstruction. When there is dyspallor with the peripapillary changes like gliotic changes or sheathing, think about old papilledema or disc edema, specifically due to elevated intracranial pressure. And in children, always rule out subtle retinal changes, which can typically cause temporal pallor. And when the patient has typical temporal pallor with central or centrocecal scotoma, think about nutritional, toxic, hereditary, and post-neuritic. This is where our differential diagnosis comes. In addition, whenever you see this disc changes with large cup and with the quadrantanopia like that, think about hypoxic damage during childhood. These are the important things you need to look. We did a look up in this publication that we had 324 of childhood optic atrophy patient. If you can see the marked one, idiopathic, 30%, this could be hereditary. Many of these patients could be hereditary. We could not diagnose because we did not have a phenotype-genotype correlation for this. So that is the magnitude, probably, I assume, in India, what we have. Most of these are isolated optic neuropathy, happens in 1 in 10,000 patients. It usually affects young age. Why you have to diagnose? Because the lifelong, they will have this diagnosis. So you need to really prepare them for what to do. And there are other things patients wants to know, real diagnosis. And 90% of the patient, parents and sibling are a part of examination and testing. They have to be tested in this group. I will share these cases, gradual painless drop in vision, right followed by left. This is very important. He is a mixed diet, no significant family history, poor vision in both eyes. These are his optic discs and fundus pictures. There are no retinal changes. All of the optic atrophy patients, they go through this typical comprehensive optic neuropathy profile examination when they come to us. Either they are coming second time or third time or fourth time, or we ourselves will go through this thing. And we have ruled out optic neuritis in this patient. And obviously pedigree chart and other things suggested that there is a point mutation in G117788 gene, which is a causative mutation for LHON. Second case, associated with diminution of vision, there is IDDM, hearing difficulty, cochlear implants in elder brother. Again, the vision is very poor. You can see this typical comprehensive evaluation of imaging using fundus photography, looking at centrocecal scotoma, all that. Typically, as you rightly guessed, this patient has WFS1 gene mutation, which says about Wolfram syndrome. The third case, painless progressive, early childhood, horizontal jerk in nystagmus, similar complaints in the brother. Again, comprehensive evaluation was done. Everything was negative when we did this genetic test, OPA1 gene defect. So when should I suspect? This is the most important part of this. Whenever there is temporal pallor, nystagmus, strabismus, bilateral symmetrical or asymmetrical, irreversible painless vision loss, family history, associated deafness, diabetes mellitus, and ataxia, MRI, 99% of these patients will have an MRI, and there are no other signs of optic atrophy. And what do we do? Comprehensive, I will again say that unless you do a comprehensive evaluation, you cannot come to a diagnosis of hereditary optic neuropathy. Do a pedigree chart, examination of family members, associated disease. This is very important. Look at ocular and systemic association, and then do a phenotype and genotype correlation. I would say I put it phenotype as a bold letter. That is more important than genotype. And obviously for the diagnosis, both are important. So always don't forget face, dysmorphism, examine family, rule out ocular and systemic association. I'm done. Neuro and orbital imaging. This is some of the dysmorphism. You should never, you can say that this child has optic atrophy, but you forgot to look at the face. What is striking there is a craniosynostosis. This is a patient with optic atrophy. You can see calcification along the optic now. Typical neurofibromatosis with glioma. These are the things we should never forget. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Dr. Chitra.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramesh. How soon does it become bilateral from unilateral? And does it remain unilateral alone too?
In Leber.
Yeah, many patients with Lebers can have unilateral to begin with within 3 to 6 months, and sometimes we have after 8 months also, the other eye could be involved. Initially, most of these patients get a diagnosis of optic neuritis if they are unilateral, most of the time. And subtle peripapillary telangiectasia, all these signs, if you can pick up, that can expedite our diagnosis. In all of this hereditary optic neuropathy, I think we need to have a high index of suspicion. It's in a lecture, it's very easy to give, but these are all dynamic process, what happens when the patient comes to you.